Welcome to Scholars and Shakes. I'm Emily, this is Jillian, and today we are interviewing Dan Wolfe of the College of Business, so thank you so much for being here today.
Well, thank you.
We just kind of wanted to start, so you're a graduate of Mary Washington in 1984, so it's fantastic having an alum here, so thank you for doing this. And then you have a Master of Arts in Communication Industries Management from Epperson College, correct?
Correct.
So Jillian's going to get into kind of what your career has been.
So you've worked in the movie industry for 30 years and have worked like roughly 500
About 28 years,
films,
yeah. Correct.
And films that include Born, Fast and Furious, Jurassic Park, Silence of the Lambs, Despicable Me.
Just to name a few.
All those good ones.
I can give you the bad ones too.
Yeah.
Land of the Lost, all those different ones that really, but no, those are the good ones, yes.
So you also got to work directly with Adam Sandler and Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you are now the principal of marketing, promotion management, and marketing movies in the College of Business here at UMW.
Correct.
All right. So after you graduated school, you moved to Los Angeles and you worked for Orient Films, New Line Cinema, and then Universal. So like how long were you at each company for?
Well, when I moved to LA, it's one of those things where, and I have a couple students ask me questions about LA now. It's one of those things is, what have you done in LA? It doesn't matter what you've done anywhere else, what have you done in LA? And I remember going to one interview and the guy looked up and he goes, "You got your master's degree? You don't need that," and put a big cross through it. Oh, and it was funny because years later he interviewed with me and I reminded him what he did. He was looking for a job. Things come back around. So I moved out there after grad school and it took a while. I mean, I started working for Disney freelancing on doing a PSA. I had a background doing a PSA for underage drinking, and it was about alcoholism and interviewing a mother that still haunts me today about her son dying from alcoholism at 20. And starting that, and then I got on a couple of the freelance jobs, and then I got a call from Orion Pictures about a job. They want somebody with a marketing job area, but I also had intern in grad school for Gillette and worked for Gillette as a media buyer. And it just really fell in line. Stayed there 6 months, New Line Cinema 6 months, and then on to Universal Pictures, and then there for 25 years. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah. From I'm working on trailers, how much work, what's the process of that? Because I know it's very strategic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just how does that work?
I mean, you could have a trailer going from anywhere from taking 3 months to cut in every 2-minute piece or 2.5-minute piece. It could take you up to a year. We had one of the best editors in the world on a movie called 47 Ronin. I think he worked on for a year and a half. It's like we burned him out because he was on a movie that was just problematic. Mm-hmm. It's a science, and really, the problem is what you create is not what finishes. It can be anywhere from, once you put your cut and you're happy with it, then it has to go to basically the creative exec on it, the head of marketing, the chairman, the other areas, then it gets to the filmmakers. Everybody's got their take on it. And unfortunately, filmmakers look at it and say, well, I don't want to show that yet, or I want to do this, and they want to hide things, and we're trying to market it. So it really is it can be quite a tedious product.
Yeah, it's kind of a back and forth.
Yeah.
Trying to make everyone
It's
happy.
back and forth, yeah. What you end up with is not your vision, rarely.
Really?
And I try to explain that in my class, my film marketing class today. Letting it go. You have to be willing to compromise a lot. So, yeah, definitely.
So you've obviously worked on a lot of films. So what would you say that your favorite movie that you worked on was?
I think the movie that was most, I think the movie that kind of touched me the most was Schindler's List. It was so hard to work on. The first cut, watching that film, the first cut in the theater, and it was just like, you couldn't imagine dealing with that movie. It was just, the way he shot it, black and white, everything he did, it was just, I think that's probably the one that just kind of affected me the most. Probably the one to work on the best was probably Jurassic Park, Lost World, because my son was little and he loved dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So I'd take him on the back lot of Universal and he'd see where, they had the dinosaurs kept, where he's like
best
Oh
look.
my God, yeah.
Oh, it was a playground. My son grew up on that back lot and my daughter did too. So it was a playground for them. We had a golf cart, so you'd go back there and just drive. So there was a lot of playtime. So, but I think that there's a lot of good movies. That's what's great about this industry. If you probably work on 12 to 14 films at a time. So you probably have 5 or 6 that are really bad, but you get to move those and work on other things. And you have others that you can market. You can still market them. They're bad movies, but there's enough to work with. Yeah. So it all depends. And then there's always a couple that are they're great. And they're great stories, great storytelling, great filmmaking. That's what I like about the business. When I was in grad school working for Gillette, you're selling one product, and that's hard when you're selling. I remember it took us 6 months to create one TV spot. And in this business, we're creating about 8 to 10 TV spots a day. we're getting creative, cutting them, finishing them that night, get them out the door, be on the air the next night.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah, so it's
Pressure. Yeah.
a lot of pressure, a lot of deadlines. You're always under deadline.
Yeah. I feel
So.
like you never catch a break.
No.
Like, and speaking of that, like, what were your like typical work weeks like, if you had a typical one, or was it just ranging?
So, yeah, I had a chance to possibly go back and work this back there this fall, and just teach it here for 1 year. And I started thinking about the hours, because you were working. If you're busy, you're working 70 hours a week. You're working 70. I mean, we were working Monday through Saturday a lot of times, not getting home till after 11, things like that. I mean, the business pays really well. You're really well compensated, but they own you, and that's the tough part. It's the fun starts going away from it, because you're always under deadline, and everything's running late. And now that we, a couple years ago, going into much more digital, when you dealt with film, you had to use processing time. You had to be, but now filmmakers can shoot as much digital as they want, and everything is very late. So going into post-production, things are very late. So if they're late, then it's late for you getting your marketing materials, everything you need to work from.
So you're on a delay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of
Yeah.
everything. But you always encourage students to fight to get their foot in the door. What advice, what advice would you give on how to do that?
Well,
exactly?
I think when I went to school here, I wasn't the best student. I probably didn't take advantage of the best opportunities. Micah, you shouldn't hear this. I think until my senior year, where I really start, saying I need to be much more proactive about things. I think the best thing you tell is, don't take no for an answer. I mean, too many people, it's easy for them to say no. And depending on the type of person that you're trying to reach out to, a lot of people promise a lot of things that just are not there. So you just got to keep fighting. You got to basically be a pest, and keep going after it. And I think that's the key, is that it's like an actor. You're going to get turned down 99 times, and the 100th time you'll get it. And you have to get used to being rejected, really.
Yeah.
So.
That's good to know. I'm about to leave the university. She's a freshman, so she has a little bit more time. So,
Yeah.
I guess if a student's like interested in film, possibly exactly what you do, like how do they start?
Unfortunately, the way it works, it's basically you've got to be there. So you can do as much that you can in the Fredericksburg area, but the bottom line is there's a lot of well, what have you done in LA? And so you've got to go there. You've got to go take that chance. It's going to take you 6 months to a year. I have one student asking me about now, and I'm saying you're going to have to start off as a runner or someone's assistant. You have to pay your dues. You're going to work a lot of hours, and it's a grind. It really is a grind. But if you're not used to making money and you're used to sleeping, the first couple of years, I mean, that's why. And the market's changed a lot. It's a young person's business with all the streaming happening. With Netflix, I went over to Netflix, everybody was 20, 30-year-olds. So it's a different period of time. You actually have an advantage being young, I think, in the business, because you're marketing to yourself, and older people don't understand how to market to your age group. And I think, I tell everybody, put that in your resume, put how much social media, put how much, because everybody's trying to define that, and to figure their way through that. So, one size fits all doesn't work anymore.
Do you think anything you learned while at Mary Washington, obviously back in 1984, that prepared you for working in the film industry?
Yeah, I think I tell everybody get an internship. I tell everybody, because here, I remember my resume consisted of lifeguarding, working on the golf course. That was my camp counselor. So that was my first couple of years. So finally doing an internship here, really, you've got to get you could goof off after your freshman year, but by your sophomore year, start looking for internships between your sophomore, junior and senior year, because that's what you need to put on that resume. That's what's key, is that people want to know that your ability to work in a real environment, that you're learning real applications. I think that's the number one thing.
Big thing.
Yeah.
More questions? Thank you so much for being with us
You're
today.
welcome.
It was a pleasure getting to know about your career. Thank you all so much for joining us for Scholars and Shakes. And yes, thank you.